Well, I guess we do get acknowledged just 20 days later. See, as Stadia version of Outriders finally addressed in detail by Square Enix. I got a lot to say here. It's SDO Daily, baby. Let's get into this one.
Stay sick cause I follow my gut. They say I was pushing my luck. I'ma push me a matte all black truck. Oh, I'm not sorry.
What's up, peoples? What's up, peoples? What's up, peoples? It is your boy MM2K back again with another episode of the SDO Daily. Before we get into this one, do me a huge favor. Do us a huge favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, rock those bells for notifications, please, so you know when we're dropping these doses. We appreciate all of y'all straight up. Y'all know the deal, y'all know the reason, and y'all know the slogan. Y'all should by now. We are not too proud to ask. With that said, if you want to simply just be braggadocious up in the chat, you want to present a question for us to address at a later time, or you simply just want to support the platform, which we appreciate all of that, feel free to hit that super chat button below if you're watching this premiere live. It helps the channel out tremendously, and we appreciate all of you for all of the support that you provide. With that said, let's continue on, because I got a lot to say here. Square Enix finally came through 20 days later. What was the movie, 21 days later? 20 days later, like some zombie flick. They came through and they finally gave a detailed response to the woes that gamers are feeling on the Stadia version of Outriders. Okay. So let's look at your response. Let's talk about and see if it suffices. And let's look at this relationship between Stadia and Square Enix and how Stadia maybe want to move going into the future in light of all this, all right? With no further ado, you know how we do. Let me show you something. So, to be fair, before I read this, because if you're new to all this, you haven't had the game, you haven't been paying close attention to the game, it won't make sense to you. So let me just preface it this way. To be fair, this game has had issues since launch on every platform, okay? The difference being that on other platforms, you can tweak something here, or they've been constantly working, them being Square Enix and People Can Fly, been working to fix things here and do all this and do all that, to where you can get it to a point for like most people where the game is playable. Even with the inventory wipe thing, I don't think this hit everybody. For the majority of people, they're getting a smooth, fathomable experience, the overwhelming majority, and they are loving this game. This game is breaking records on Steam and so forth, because for the most part, the overwhelming most part, gamers on other platforms are enjoying this title. And I can attest to that because I play this game often on my PC natively, and when I'm on the go, I play it on GFN. Both places may have issues here and there, but for the most part, it's a very enjoyable and fathomable experience. For me, on Stadia, that's not the case. For many, that's not the case. I can't say that it's the case for most either way, but there's too many of us that are not, that don't even have an experience that's playable, if that makes sense. Okay. So now let me read these tweets, and hopefully now that I've painted a broad picture of where we're at with this game overall, and then we can segue into what's going on with Stadia particularly. All right, here goes the tweet. With the last week's patch successfully continuing to prevent any further complete inventory wipes, we are now looking into the below areas of focus. Inventory restoration, Stadia updates and future patches, and more. So that's why I explained what I explained earlier. Let's look particularly into what they had to say in the Stadia. If you click on that link that's provided in that tweet, it brings you here. And it brings you to the different subsections of this update that they want to provide. Now, they've been doing this thoroughly since launch, since a lot of people were complaining because the servers were disconnecting constantly and a bunch of other things were happening. Square Enix and People Can Fly have been diligent on providing updates to everyone else except for Stadia. Finally, they added Stadia into those updates. So if you look into the Stadia subsection here and you click on that as they asked you to there, this is the statement that it brings you to. Stadia development news. We would also at this time like to share some more news around the status of Outriders on Stadia. Stadia has followed a different development timeline than other platforms. This is also why the Stadia version has certain unique features, such as Stadia's Stream Connect, but also doesn't necessarily face the same bugs and issues the other platforms may. I want you to pay close attention to that part, but also doesn't necessarily face the same bugs and issues that the other platforms may. We're gonna come back to that in a little bit. It was our intention to converge these development builds shortly after Outriders launch in order to provide Stadia players with the same experience and access to the same cross-play matchmaking pool. Unfortunately, the launch weekend issues we face, as well as the recent inventory wipe bug, have consumed much of our focus and would otherwise have been spent bringing Stadia in line with other platforms. As these other priority issues will very soon have been addressed, we will once again proceed with bringing Stadia version up to date. We hope to release a patch for Stadia in the week of April 26th, so we finally get an ETA. That will address pre-order issues. A second patch may follow soon after, and we hope to be in a position where Stadia will fully be in line with other platforms in the coming weeks, though we are working to a sooner the better timeline. We understand that this is less than ideal, and ask for your patience. We will let you know as soon as we have news regarding this matter. So here's my thoughts on that statement. It's not enough. I'm not satisfied reading that. Even though they finally provided an ETA, you should have provided something weeks ago. If the ETA got pushed back, then the ETA gets pushed back. But you thoroughly have talked to the other platforms. You've taken the time to put together characters and let them know, even when their ETAs got pushed back, and you're now getting back to us now. And you're finally getting back to us now, rather, excuse me. And I'm not impressed by this. We understand that this is less than ideal and ask for your patience. We will let you know as soon as we have news regarding this. The hell with less than ideal. People pre-ordered this game. People paid money for this game, pre-ordered it to get the pre-order bonuses, and they still don't have them. They can't engage in crossplay. And simply put, bigger than all that, they just can't play the game because it's not playable. This is less than ideal. Now, some of you may look at that and say, MM2K, what's wrong with that? They're acknowledging it, let it go. No, and in response, you might be saying you wanted them to flare it up and act a little emotional about it. Yes, I did. I wanted them to tap into their inner Edgar Allan Poe and seem like they give a damn. Less than ideal. We'll let you know. What? And then another thing that gets me is they say here, a second patch may follow soon after. We hope to be in a position where Stadia will be fully in line with other platforms in the coming weeks, but they try to play semantics about some crap up here when they say, but also doesn't necessarily face the same bugs and issues that other platforms may. Look, let me break it down to you like this. This is a bunch of word salad that, again, to me, it don't come up to the price of a piece of lettuce, okay? Who cares if other versions are having bugs that are not hitting the majority of players if they can play the damn game? Too many of us on this side can't even play the damn game. Don't be coy with us. To me, this isn't enough, and it isn't acceptable right now. And I'm hoping that the Stadia community compounds on SquareEnix even further to get them to do better. We paid money just like everybody else. It doesn't matter if the $60 came from Xbox, from PlayStation, or whatever. You got the $60 from us. Or the $70, whatever the case may be. I forgot, I just went and bought the daggone game. I forgot how much it cost. But I pre-ordered it. It's not acceptable. And its response isn't acceptable. It doesn't have the sense of urgency that it should have for you abandoning your responsibility of being on top of this with the community the way that you should have. Okay? With that being said, a lot of you may be looking at this and you may say, well, MM2K, you're giving Stadia a pass. And no, I haven't given Stadia a pass. I haven't given them a pass in my various other videos where I talked about this, and I won't give them a complete and total pass today. But I know where to put the focus of my ire. Let me explain. Yes, do I think that it's a problem that Stadia went on a world tour with Square Enix to promote said game when the game was performing this bad for so many people? And really, they didn't see the apex of this becoming such a bad turn of events thanks to, of all people, Xbox. If Xbox didn't steal the thunder from this game being on Stadia and potentially having a similar outcome like Cyberpunk 2077, a big ticket game, having the unique versatility of Stadia and making wide mindshare reach with casual gamers and the likes. If Xbox didn't steal that thunder and people would have said, you know what, like me, that said, you know what, Square Enix put these pictures out, this thing is going to be badass on the platform, only to get what we're getting now, oh man, this thing could be a lot worse. So I tip my hat to Xbox for inadvertently saving Stadia from some more doom and gloom. People have talked about it, but not at the wide scale that maybe they should have or they could have. Okay? So my message to Stadia is this. Before you book those interviews, because these developers and these publishers, they will throw you under the bus, as we've seen time after time. Before you book those interviews, there has to be some type of QC that's out there that says, hey, is this a port that we want to promote? Or is this a port that we just want to be out there at first to bolster up our library, and then, you know, over time it'll get addressed? Because Stadia is not in a position to tell a developer, this isn't good enough, so go away. That could have long-term ramifications, so I understand the tough spot that they're in. But maybe what you have to do in your service level agreements, if this isn't going to put you too much in a bad spot, again, because you don't have the relationships, you don't have the lineage of an Xbox or PlayStation, so you don't have, as I like to say, the bargaining chips to even, you know, be this bold. But I say in the service level agreement, you know, you go to someone that's coming to the platform and say, look, in light of potential issues, if it's widespread, we're gonna have to step in and make an acknowledgement before you do. We normally like to, you know, leave it to our partners, but we might have to say something before you do. Then, if you still don't say anything, like in this case with Outriders, we're gonna have to provide a high-level update to our original acknowledgement. And then, after X amount of time, if you're still like coy, you're not saying anything, you're not really addressing the issue, it's not resolved to the satisfaction of our consumers, then we're going to have to step in and increase our refund policy for the particular game, like how they had to do here. I think that makes things a lot easier for everybody as far as expectations and how to operate, and where you're not having these one-off situations where people are just getting infuriated. But you got to understand where the majority of this ire belongs, and why the majority of my ire, again, is with Square Enix, and it's going to be with the devs in situations that play out like this. Ultimately, it's the devs that make this game, that make these titles, that make these bad ports. And ultimately, it's the devs taking advantage of the platform. How so? Well, first and foremost, they know Stadia needs these games. They know all the negative press that they've gotten, that every single day somebody was telling them that they should shut down business. That a lot of these publications were trying to do their best to push people away from the platform because they thought cloud gaming was coming to take their console or their PC, like the idiot herd does. And they know that the platform needs these games on there to get more mindshare. They also know that Stadia has a very committed and passionate community who wants these games, and when things don't go right like here, they will pin this all or the majority of it to Stadia when things go wrong. So when you have a situation like that and you're a dev that you see Stadia throwing money around and you need extra cash to help fund your effort for Xbox, kind of like something similar that we've seen what Gearbox was doing with their Aliens Marines money, Colonial Marines money, when they were trying to enhance Borderlands 2. Remember that debacle? You're seeing a lot of that. That's reminiscent of those actions happening here. So when you see Google throwing out all this money for games, and you know they got a passionate community that's just going to tack this on to them, you're going to have a lot of scenarios where devs and publishers step in and say, sorry, sucker, and run off with their money. And this isn't the first time that we see this from Square Enix. Final Fantasy 15. They've gotten away with this before. When Final Fantasy 15 didn't have a 60 frames per second mode, everybody looked at Stadia and was like, see, you said your platform could do this. Shame on you, shame on you. When they're the developers. And we've seen time after time, game after game, games that even released around that same time. Games like Division 2, Doom Eternal, and so many others, that they could perform better than that. Square Enix just didn't put the time and effort into it. They didn't care. They took the money and dipped. So we gotta be cognizant of this perfect storm that we may placate and we may inadvertently participate in when we don't put our eyes in the right place when things like this happen. But I do like what the community did this time. The community was letting Stadia know that they were not happy with the revelations here. But then they quickly started to shift their focus to Square Enix, the developers of the game. When Stadia spoke up and said, hey, look, we understand we're working with our partners to get this done, we're trying. And then they realized hold on, we're hearing from Stadia, but we're not hearing from Square Enix. Then I think the light bulb went off. We just gotta make sure that light bulb goes off a lot more to let these developers know that, hey, when you take our money, you gotta perform. And if something's up with the performance, you gotta communicate. But if we don't continue to be steadfast and properly focused when these issues arise, like I said before, they just gonna take the money and dip. And that's not gonna help out the platform at all. And with that said, that's it from your boy MM2K. Let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below, because like I always say, who cares what I think? But if you did like what I had to say, check out the links below to follow me. Those links will lead you to the Broadband Bullies, PNTS Network, Hard Knock Digital Culture, and yes, the Stadia Dosage. With all that said, thank you all for joining us. You have a wonderful gaming day. Peace.